Driving Maul, where blokes judge rugby live on Loud Radio. Welcome back, I'm that man Don. No Sharky today, he wasn't able to join us, but I've roped in a willing and able accomplice. Hoodwood, welcome Buckies.
Hello, how are you doing today?
I'm pretty good, thanks man. Lots to talk about, plenty of rugby going on as the season winds down in terms of Super Rugby. Lots to chat about, lots to discuss. With the big build-up ahead of the playoffs this weekend. And big news, folks, we will be on air for the Cheetahs' first ever crack at a playoff game at something ridiculous like 8 o'clock on Sunday morning. Myself and Buckies and a mate of his from Ermelo, which should be a good fun with a bunch of us screaming Vrystaat first thing on a Sunday morning. So tune in for Blokes on the Couch on Driving Maul on Loud Radio Sunday morning for the Cheetahs playoff game against the Brumbies. But let's get into the rugby news. And I've changed it up a bit this week because there's not a hell of a lot of other leagues and competitions to talk about other than Super Rugby, and as much as we could probably do an hour of it, I figured let's touch on a few other things.
Sounds good, let's start.
The IRB says they're going to review their controversial in-match test for concussion, the noggin test, or the pitch side suspected concussion assessment, PSCA. Why they would do that to anybody is beyond me.
Just beautiful again.
Yeah, it's been in place for a year, but it came to the fore in terms of concerns about how it's being implemented in the final test of the Lions series, when barely 5 minutes into the match, George Smith cracked heads with Richard Hibbard and was walked off the field rather unsteady on his legs.
Semi-carried, let's be honest.
Yeah, dude, I mean, you thought, oh, well, awesome, he's in for his 111th test, second crack at the Lions in his career, and as a fan, you're going, there's no way in hell he's playing the rest of this game. Barely 5 minutes later, he's back on the field, and he was interviewed afterwards. He said, it obviously affected me. You saw me snake dancing off the field. I passed the tests, and and was within the 5 minutes, and I got out there. So yeah, the IRB are now saying, well, maybe we should just double check the standards that are being implemented and how it's being implemented, because somebody made a point about what other job in the world would you be allowed to go back to work after major brain trauma 5 minutes later.
But you're going to always, maybe like, what's that Bloodgate scandal that happened in Europe? You need a kicker, I got a concussion, go off 5 minutes, kicker comes in, kicks the winning penalty,
That's it.
It's dodgy.
Indeed. So time will tell. Yes, Sharky, we are going to touch on some club rugby after we've done the news. Robert Everson's taken up his deal with Montpellier. There was a thought he may renege on the deal when he made it into the box setup earlier this year, but it seems the threat of legal action and being fined 500,000 euros by Montpellier has encouraged him to go, much like it did René Ranger in the same situation. He joins two other SA centres in JP du Plessis, formerly of Province and of Rugby League in Australia, and the Rebels, and Macykent. So they got four foreign centres to pick from. JP went there to play more rugby, and now he's going to be back in the pecking order behind Everson, Macykent and Ranger.
Again.
So yeah, it'd be interesting to see that. A lot of people saying it's a big loss for the Cheetahs, but when you look at the stats on player stats for Super Rugby, he's top of the charts for missed tackles.
Yeah, 37. But he's also, I think, number 9 or 7 for most tackles made, so maybe, but tackles missed.
Let's be honest, when you look at those stats, the Cheetahs are right up there in terms of tackles made, piles of their players, and they've actually had to do a lot of tackling, and the reason they've actually ended up where they ended up is because their defence has improved so drastically. So you've got to take all stats can be looked at in various ways, and when you consider that he's also right up there for pilfers and turnovers, etc., he will be a loss. And it is a pity, but it's the way rugby goes in this country. Other news for Province, Don Armand, the poster boy, has signed a 2-year deal with the Exeter Chiefs, so he's already there.
I wonder if that court case about his driver license was ever sorted out.
Allegedly. No idea. And then the ever-evolving John Smith regime at the Sharks continues. Brad McLeod-Henderson has been appointed the forwards coach, while their juniors, under-19, under-21, and Vodacom Cup coach, I've forgotten his first name, but Everett is going to be in charge of the backs, with both working under a new director of rugby, Brendan Fenter, and a new coaching structure. Essentially, there's no head coach. and the three of them are going to be the coaching setup that's been put into place by Smith based on what he experienced at Saracens. Just on an aside, Brad McLeod-Henderson was the Hilton High rugby coach for the last few years, highest paid schools coach in South Africa over the last few seasons.
Yeah, it's kind of illegal that just a schoolboy coach comes up like that into a national, provincial setup. But yeah, John Smith, hello.
Yeah, all changed at the Sharks. Incoming Wallabies coach Ewan McKenzie doubts that, and this is just around this Benji Marshall story, because there's now another big name league player that's looking to switch to Union, and this guy is a New Zealand league representative and says he wants to play for the All Blacks. He's 28. If you've heard Greg Martin's piece about him, about being fat and useless and this and all kinds of other things, he is... Ewan McKenzie reckons he's not going to be able to adapt quickly enough to make a big impact as a rugby union playmaker. And essentially his quotes are suggesting that the Australian Rugby Union aren't lined up to sign him for one of their sides, because he has been linked to the Waratahs.
And the Blues.
Yeah, but the Blues is obviously a New Zealand side, so it looks like he may be going to the Blues. Talking about Australian rugby, Robbie Deans has been shortlisted by Clermont as the replacement for his former assistant at the Crusaders, Vern Cotter, who is now the head coach of Scotland. So we'll see what happens there. And then a review, and just linking to this, because there's a thinking from this side of the studio that Robbie Deans could end up at the Highlanders, because the Highlanders have said they've begun a review of their worst season in the Highlanders' 18-year history in Super Rugby, but they say Jamie Joseph is safe, which usually means he isn't. So we'll see what happens there.
They finished second, bottom of the log. Just above the keys.
Third. Lowest position ever. No, you're right. Second. The Force pipped them with that surprise win. And then the other news is obviously this PSD story that's floated, PSDT that's floating around. Peter Steph the Toy. Will he be a Sharks player? Will he be a Bulls player? Will the lure of working under Victor Matfield as a forwards coach get him to sign for the Bulls? We should know the details of those within the next day or two, because the Sharks are talking to him. The Bulls are saying they've got no comment, which usually means there's shit going on somewhere.
I didn't even hear about this story. This could be interesting,
because he is one of the. He's got a big future in the game. I mean, can you imagine? Can you imagine a Bok pack for the next 10 years with him and Eben Etzebeth, and then little Jacques Duplessis that played in the under-21s? Running around
hurting people. Yeah,
for the Springboks for the next 10 or 11 years, because they're all 21, 22 years of age. So time will tell. We'll keep an eye on that one, let you know next week what the developments are. I'm sure it'll break on Twitter first. A nice little aside, I thoroughly enjoyed this little story. After 30 years, Murrayfield has decided to change its posts, and they're busy upgrading the whole stadium. And they removed the posts that have seen Grand Slam wins and wins over the box, and there's quite a bit of history there. And following the removal of them 2 months ago, the Scottish Rugby Union challenged all clubs in Scotland to tell them in fewer than 50 words why they should be given the famous set of posts. Caithness Rugby Football Club came out on top, and thanks to the following penned by their secretary, Shona Kirk, they've ended up with Murrayfield's famed posts on their small little ground in the north of Scotland. And the ditty goes, 50 years have passed, but at very long last, Caithness will have its first rugby pavilion, but raising that $250,000 has left us without a pound. So to get the posts from the hallowed ground would make us the happiest club around.
Oh, beautiful.
Lovely story. And then this one really made me laugh, because Gavin Henson, really, you've got to worry about so much talent, such a future ahead of him, and it's just gone in a downward spiral year on year. But he's recently joined Bath, and on Wednesday last week, he was knocked out in a pub by one of his Bath teammates. The footage is on the internet. You can go and find it. It's a cell phone taped by somebody. It looks like Carl Ferns of Bath, but Henson's having a full go, and Carl Ferns floors him in one straight right. Gone. Tickets. Thanks for playing. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
A forward nonetheless.
I think it's a front row. But it's stunning to watch, because he really does get collected properly, and it could actually be put into a GIF. It's that you just cannot believe that it's real, how quickly it happens and how far he flies. And then we missed this, and I don't know how I missed this, because we all know that there's this whole Madiba Day thing happening on 17th of August with a double header with Bafana playing and then the Bokke playing, which will be quite cool. But what we didn't realise, and what we'd all forgotten about, was the fact that that test between Argentina and the Boks that's taking place on that day was supposed to be played in Bloemfontein, and it's been yanked from the Free State and taken to well, it's not even Soweto, dude. It's Nasrec. It's like you can't even see Soweto from there. Trust me.
Sorry. Anything above Beaufort West is same place anyway.
So that is the news in terms of what's going on there. We are going to take a little break, listen to some music. When we come back, we're going to talk about Craven Week, the SA School side, and Province Club Rugby, and more, obviously, with the Super Rugby stuff a little later in the show. You are listening to Driving Maul on Loud Radio. We'll be back after a little bit of Bruce Springsteen. Welcome back to Driving Maul on Loud Radio. Buckies, it's time to talk a little bit of Western Province Club Rugby, because with the Community Cup place up for grabs, there's a huge game on at Hammies this weekend. Hamilton's taking on top of the table Durban.
Hammies lying second on 41 points, and Durban leading with 44 points. And I think whoever wins this game Saturday goes through to Community Cup, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, look, I don't know the full details of that. I usually rely on Sharky for it, but it will certainly go a long way to deciding, because obviously if Durban win it, they'll be 9 points clear, and that's pretty much game over in terms of that. But time will tell.
But I must... Earlier this season, Hamilton's played Durban in the home ground, and we actually gave them quite a whipping. So we'll see. It's going to be an interesting game on Saturday. I'm actually really looking forward to it. But I think Hammies will take it and go to Community Cup and maybe have their 2009 Club Champ success again.
Yes, indeed. Remember that well. What I wanted to do is just check something. Okay, they've played the same amount of games as well. So Warmers are pretty much out of it. They've played 3 more games than both of Durban and Hammies.
Yeah.
And what are we talking? 3, 6, 9, 10. So after this weekend, there will be 6 games left.
Yeah.
For those sides. Marty's and UCT obviously have been on holiday for the last 3 weeks. And Vix. So they've only played 9 games, which means we could end up with a situation where Durban and Hammies would have finished their season while those guys are still fighting it out to decide who actually wins the league. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll let you know. I'll try and dig out. I'm hoping Judge Rugby's paying attention and will let us know exactly when or where the choice is made in terms of who goes to the Community Cup. Big clash down at Hammies this weekend. If you've got the opportunity to get down there, go and enjoy it, because Club Rugby with something on the...
It's a lekker geest there.
With something up for grabs as well in terms of Community Cup place. It should prove to be quite interesting. On to Craven Week and Western Province clean sweep of the age group rugby this July holidays. They won the under 13, under 16 and the under 18 rugby weeks with running rugby in all of them. What the fuck happens after that?
Unless they could see, I think.
Yeah, no comment. Province played the Lions in the final game, raced out to a 30-odd something ridiculous lead at half-time. Then the Lions came back into it and were within a try of getting to within 2 points before player of the tournament and son of former Springbok and Western Province legend Michael du Plessis, nephew of Carl du Plessis, scored a try that we'll talk about try of the weekend, but for me it was right up there.
Was it?
He was named player of the tournament, and Province, as we said, won the whole bang shoot. Other sides that impressed on the week were Southwestern Districts. Quite a few of their backline players made the SA school side.
But they always they're from the Eastern Cape. The Eastern Cape always has a good Craven Week side. It's just after nothing happens.
Southwestern Districts, EP were terrible this year, and it should be a worry. The Eastern Province side was just woeful, and then the Sharks as well were a bit all over the place, and the Bulls lost to Southwestern Districts in their final game, which was also quite a surprise. And then just running through the SA school side, Rikus Botma, the province captain, and Paul Jim, 8th man, is the box skipper. There's 2 Daniel Duplessis, one in the front row and one in the back line. One of Paul Roos and one of Paul Boys High. It's the backline player that's the son of Michael Duplessis. Dupree twins coming out of Guernsey College and KZN made it as well. A couple of Paul Boys High lads. Paul Jim. In fact, there's quite a lot of province guys, as you'd expect.
Yeah, they got the 8 spots in the selection went to province, and that's the most of any other team in the squad.
That's right. And then just a name to look out for, 2 names to look out for in the back line. Dewald Human of Southwestern Districts and Duan van der Merwe. Those 2, I've earmarked. I reckon we're going to see them turn up somewhere in the not too distant future, playing for one of the provincial sides in this country. Definitely got the skills and the talent, and obviously the complexion to be an appealing selection. As offside as that may sound, but it's the truth of it in this country. And then Ox Nche of the Free State. You must see the size of this kid. He is, and obviously they couldn't call him Os because A, Os exists, and B, I don't know if
he's
they
bigger.
Yeah, he's also black. But he's solid, and it's his 2nd year in the SA school side. Big name that didn't get in there, and it was a surprise to many, but I can... in terms of the fly halves, as I said, Dewald Human impressed me, and Grant Hermanus of Western Province also seems to have all the goods. But Innocent Radebe, who's played 5 years solid age group rugby for the Lions, from under 13 all the way to under 18. Big surprise that his name wasn't included in the SA school side. He was sensational in the final against Province. He seems to have an X factor. I think what counted against him is he doesn't kick for posts, whereas Hermanus does. But keep an eye out on that name, Innocent Radebe. I think he's going to pop up in the next year or 2 somewhere along the line, playing at a decent level in this country. He looks to have been earmarked for higher honours.
Fingers crossed for the young lad.
Yeah, and I mean it was an awesome Craven week. I try and watch as much as I can, just in terms of year on year, definitely the final game and as many of the province games as I can, but also trying to see what else is out there. And you see the running rugby that's played and the offloads. I mean, the final, there was some spectacular tries scored by both province and the Lions.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, who coaches the shit out of them in the age groups? Because they come out of school and then it's back to the old stereotypical South African rugby, big pack of forwards, bash it up, ruck and maul, driving maul, up and under.
They get droned.
So it'd be nice to see the running rugby that Craven Week encourages being allowed to continue into the under-21s and the... what's that thing? The Vodacom Cup. Yeah, I'd like to see more of it.
Oh. If I'm not mistaken, actually, the Cravenwyk Western Province coach this year is an old Hammies coach. He coached the second team. Krill or something.
Marius.
Yeah, I can't remember his name, but I remember his face. But, yeah.
No idea. And the other big shock, just in terms of not making any sense, is obviously the Lions were right up there in this Craven Week in terms of performances, but they end up with one player in the SA school side. And it didn't make any sense. Anyway, time will tell, and there certainly was a lot of talent on display. Time to handle some ref stress. Hashtag ref stress before we get into talking about Super Rugby. Chris Pollock and his cronies resulted in a red card for, I forget his name, a Blues player, for a stamp on a head, which looked far less intentional or hectic than the Horwell one of a couple of weeks ago. But he gets a straight red for it, and then he gets cited for another one afterwards. But in the fallout from that, because there was a lot of talk around Pollock's piss poor performance in the first Lions test, and many were saying that Jeepers Creepers, what's going on here. He's actually come out and said that he knows that he hasn't been on his game, and he hasn't ended up with a Super Rugby playoff spot in terms of reffing a game. But he has said that he reckons the lawmakers in the game need to clean up the rule book so as to take pressure off referees and ensure a more free-flowing and understandable game. Kudos to him to have the gumption to stand up and have a go at the rules, because let's be honest, they are all over the place. Now,
yeah, a lot of rules contradicting each other, and a lot of them don't get policed by the refs anymore. And it's time for a do-over. Let's be honest.
The new one is this whole the whole engagement process at the scrum, and then that the halfback has to feed it up the middle.
Are you talking about Bruce Van Kane Barrett?
Yes, that's the one. But I mean, how many skew feeds did we see this weekend? Anyway,
every weekend's drama, the skew feeds into
all.
the
But I was just happy about the fact that for a change, a referee has come out and said, "I know I've been shit, and I know that I need to sort it out. I'm aware of what's been going on." Because the rest of the interview, he talks about the fact that he knows he's been below par, but the fact that he's actually saying, you know what, the rules are a nightmare for a referee in a high-pressure, high-paced game where they're trying to pay attention to a whole lot of things and go and sort it out, rule makers. But there's no chance of that happening because the fat cats will be sitting in their suits.
They're probably just going to phase him out along the time. We won't see him in a big game again soon for whooping the big names like that.
Indeed. So let's get on to this weekend's Super Rugby results. Before kickoff of the first game, we knew what the top six were in terms of who was through. It was just down to the pecking order of who was going to end up where. And the Crusaders made sure that they put some pressure on the Chiefs in the first game on Friday morning with a 25-17 win over the Hurricanes in Christchurch. 3 tries for the Crusaders. They needed 4 to put themselves above the Chiefs and really put some pressure on. And essentially, by not getting the 4th, they guaranteed the Chiefs would win the top spot in New Zealand. Victor Vito, Brad Shields, and Julian Sauvier got tries for the Hurricanes. Scrappy, messy game, but the Crusaders machine into the knockout phases again, and you can't discount them.
Typical Crusaders. First half, dead quiet, looked very average. Second half of the year, they just come and bam, playoffs. And I think they're going to demolish the Reds this weekend, so they will face the Chiefs next weekend. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, well, we will indeed. Then the second game on Friday morning absolutely destroyed everyone's Super Brew. Yeah, the Rebels Highlanders. I mean, come on. 31-7 halftime score and you lose the game? No, exactly. Highlanders 31-7 up against the Rebels. Rebels looking like they're not going anywhere. Highlanders cruising to a decent victory and trying to ensure that they don't finish in their worst position in Super Rugby history. Second half, well, first of all, I mean, Ben Smith, Jose Gear, Tamati Edison, Tony Woodcock getting the tries for the Highlanders. They picked up 4. They had the bonus point victory, the bonus point try by half time. Yeah. And then, where the hell? There we go. Sorry, I was looking for the Rebels. And then 3 guys for the Rebels picking up a brace. Tom English, who's getting better and better out on the wing. He's also another Connor Obiba lookalike. Yeah. Him and their fullback, Jaden Hayward, no, not Jaden Hayward. Is it Jaden Hayward? Anyway, the fullback for the Rebels, Jason Woodward, that's him. He's also seems to be coming to the fore in terms of, certainly looks like a decent prospect. Cooper Vuna with a double on his final game before going to Japan. And then Bryce Hegarty getting the winner at the Hooter after some lovely interplay by Vuna and Hugh Pyle down the left wing. Beautiful offload from Vuna. Well, the pass of the weekend for me was that little basketball dunk over the top of the cover defence to put Pyle into space, who then fed inside and Hegarty crashed over. And then they allowed Gareth Delve to take the conversion attempt because they were leading by 1 point and time was up, so they didn't need to worry about getting it over. Unfortunately, Delve couldn't sign off with a memorable conversion in his last game for the Rebels, so he's out of there. And then, as we said, the rather tetchy and feisty Blues versus Chiefs game where Kane Richardson was sent. What's his name now? He's the cricketer. Kane Barrett. Yeah. Kane Barrett got a red card early on. And then his family of the fly-off. No idea. And then there was a yellow card a little later in the game for the Blues as well. Included in that was a Bundy Aki high tackle on Rene Ranger that resulted in Ranger actually showing Aki the middle finger after the penalty was given. Yeah. I saw that. That was hilarious. But standout player in this game, and he seems to be getting better and better at the age of just 21, is Ben Tamiaful now. 2 tries. I think he might have got 5 or 6 now for the season. Certainly looks like he's trimmed down, likes to
to hit the line at pace.
He's a great replacement for the prop they lost last season and scoring all those tries. Like I think.
Sona Tomanolo. Woo!
Wow. Impressed.
So the Chiefs got their 4 tries. They won the game 26-16, and they ended up topping the tables because of things that went the other way for them later in the weekend. And then the Waratahs Reds, don't even bother watching the highlights, folks. There aren't really any. And the Reds not really thinking, probably should have lost the game, because then they would have finished below the Cheetahs and wouldn't have had to play the Crusaders in Christchurch.
Lovely.
So what it means is, where was I? Sorry, 14-12. The Reds won that one. Not much to talk about. Cam Crawford with another try, Beric Barnes with one as well, and he looks completely different playing without a scrum cap and that shitty moustache and weird porno hair.
It's ugly.
I was like, all they did was call him Barnes for the try, and I was like, is this a new player? Is that Beric Barnes? It doesn't look like Beric Barnes. Who the hell is he?
Doesn't he just need like one more concussion to be dead or something?
Yeah, he's very soft.
Probably why he's going to Japan.
Yeah, he's very soft in the head. And then another upset for the weekend. The Force getting up over the Brumbies 21-15. They raced into a 21-0 lead or 21-3 lead. But the dodgy try, there was definitely some debate around one of them. I can't remember which one. Either way, the Brumbies came back, but cost themselves a home semi-final guaranteed because they didn't pick up the win there. And in hindsight, they may well live to rue that, because the Bulls ended up losing to the Stormers, and if they'd won their game, the Brumbies would have finished second and the Bulls would be lying in third and taking on the Cheetahs in Pretoria. But not to be. And then the Sharks, 10 tries against the hapless Kings. Marcel Coetzee penalty try, and Freddie Zillinger getting one as well. Meyer Bosman picking one up. The Beast thoroughly impressive in this game. Made lots of yards with ball in hand.
En die vaste losses, hy made my indruk oor.
Indeed. So 58-13, the Kings sign off with another hiding.
And Jacques Butters took the last conversion or penalty, but he missed it very...
Oh, really? Is he also off?
Yeah, he's off. I think Japan as well, if I'm not mistaken.
He's the most capped Super Rugby player not to win to play a Test Rugby. Where was I going with that? Oh, yeah, and then on to... arguably the contender for game of the weekend, certainly from a neutral's perspective. But the double bluff for the Eben Etzebeth try, 5-meter line out for the Stormers, and the Bulls got ready for the rolling maul that the Stormers have been playing all season. Instead, they throw a short pass to Eben Etzebeth at the front, and he crashes over in the corner. Take that sports fun. Yeah, indeed. Then Brian Habana with contender for try of the weekend.
Yeah, beautiful. And
at the
classic Habana try, cut in.
Yeah, the cutting in, the offload by De Villiers, but the sidestep by Aplon to let Habana through is right up there. And if you haven't had an opportunity to check it out, go and have a look, because Habana comes at such an angle that he's running into Aplon, and Aplon basically jumps up and out of his way to let him through the gap to ghost in for a try. In his final game of Super Rugby for the Stormers, playing against the team that he made his name with, really, after moving from the Lions. But a great send-off for Habana. And then Jean de Villiers with a try after getting a yellow card for a late and armless tackle on JJ.
Was not Franso Venter.
Was it Swayze Venter? I thought it was JJ. Anyway, whoever it was, he smashed him hard.
Yeah. Cringing on the floor like a little baby in the pink. It was beautiful.
But I'll tell you what, the standout for me in that game,
Gary van Aswegen.
Yeah, Gary van Aswegen. I'll tell you what, I take it all back. If he can pull that kind of performance out week in and week out, I can understand why he's there. And Louis Schroeder, he was also, I can understand based on that performance why he's rated so highly, including by Hanneke Meyer, in terms of being drafted into a box setup when there was a shortage of scrum halves. But Gary, probably his best game.
He just dictated that game perfectly, and he was so cool and collective at 5 out of 5 as well at the kicking team.
And then the passes were just a thing of beauty. So what it meant in the final analysis for the season was the Chiefs finished top, the
Bulls second,
finished second, Brumbies third, Crusaders, Reds, Cheetahs is the sequence for the playoffs. And before we get into those, we are just going to do a little tearing into the South African sides and a little bit of analysis and review of what went on in South African rugby this season. But before we do that, I'm thirsty. Because there is plenty to talk about. And as a Stormers fan, there's a lot to be concerned about in Cape Rugby. And Sharks fans, cheers.
Cheers.
And the Sharks fans should be too. So let's start with the Sharks. Sharks scored 40 tries for the season, which on paper actually looks pretty good. Until you realise that they scored 20 of them in 2 games versus the Kings and the Rebels. So they only scored 20 in the other 16 and went trialless 3 games on the bounce at one stage. They didn't kick for goal in a few close games and left points on the park with missed kicks in a few close games, including that one against the Bulls a couple of weeks ago.
Lambie was shocking in that game.
But you then look at the fact that they lost 5 games by less than 7, and you take into account that they weren't scoring tries or kicking their points, and suddenly the season could have a whole different complexion about it for the Sharks. So disappointing to say the least. They ended up finishing 8th in the log, but as I said, when you look at the opportunities they had in terms of how close things were, if they'd just had their wits about them and not been obnoxious in the early games where they were kicking for the corner and trying to get rolling mauls going instead of taking the 3 points on offer in games that they ended up losing by a couple.
So Keegan must just trust the Afrikaner. We know what we're doing.
Now, on to the Stormers.
Yeah.
It is so frustrating. I mean, I've been going to Newlands since 1980.
True.
I've watched a lot of rugby. I've watched a lot of Western Province, a lot of the Stormers, and when you look at what's there in terms of the talent, and I know 16 players out injured, and yes, there were a couple of sketchy calls that didn't go their way, but it's bullshit in terms of saying that that's what cost them, because what cost them is their inability to score tries. So let's just look at the stats. Only the Force and the Kings scored less tries than the Stormers this season. They got 30 in 18. Yes, defensively they're outstanding. They only average 1 try a game against, by far the best in the competition. They lost 5 games by less than 7, and having played 8 games against the top 6, they won 5 and lost 3 versus the top 6 sides, and none of them by more than 8 points, the 3 that they lost. Right?
I think during the season, I think it was Carl Duplessis actually said, well, the defense is great, but it doesn't help if you don't win games and score tries.
No, exactly. And then, but you look at the stat, like there were 3 games of this season where the Stormers scored 3 tries inside the first 60 minutes and didn't get the 4th try with 20 minutes to play.
When last did the Stormers get a bonus point?
No, well, I'm getting onto that one. Right, we're getting to that one. But now you consider the fact that if they were scoring tries in the close games that they were in, even if they didn't get the 4 try bonus points, they picked up a win against the Tars, picked up a win against the Blues, picked up a win against the Rebels, which they should have done in all of those games, picked up a win against the Cheetahs. Yes, there were sketchy decisions that were made in those games, but if you're scoring tries, it doesn't matter if the few odd ones go against you because you're winning the game comfortably.
Yeah.
And then you look at the fact that there were 3 games at least where they had 20 minutes to get a bonus point try and didn't. You're suddenly looking at an extra 20 points for the Stormers in the season, and it puts them top of the log again.
Oh. And how many games did John de Villiers go for corner instead for post that would also have won them the game?
Yeah, no, totally. All the same stuff. Exactly the same things that ailed the Sharks. But here's the worrying stat. Since the conference system started, the Stormers have scored 5 4-try bonus points in their last 50 games of Super Rugby. Right? Just 1 in the last 33. 3 times this season, as we said, they were 3 tries inside an hour with no bonus point. 4 times they picked up 3 tries. The 4th one that was in the 71st minute, and fair enough, 8-9 minutes to get one. I can understand why you don't, but it's just not good enough. And Alistair Coetzee obviously is tied into a big contract. The Western Province Rugby Union, I can only imagine, doesn't have the finances to pay him off and get rid of him. So they've got to see out his contract because they've been dumb to us and they gave him a 3 or a 4-year deal. But he's got to go. And, you know, in case you're not paying attention, Rob Wagner, there's a certain Robbie Deans floating around looking for work.
Yeah, next question. Who's going to replace him? That's got the CV that he does. Oh, well, Robbie Deans is floating around now, yes.
It's got to be. Anyway, time will tell. Coetzee will be there next year, and we'll have more frustration with tries not being scored. And I know, you see a lot of comments by the Stormers players saying that the fans are unfaithful and blah, blah, blah. It's not that at all. We love the guys. We love watching them play rugby. And when they do turn it on like they did against the Bulls this weekend, you can see how much they can do and what they can do. But there's something amiss in Western Province rugby that's not allowing them to behave like that week in, week out.
Yeah.
Anyway, enough of that. The Kings ended up where we all thought they would. Conceded an average of almost 4 tries a game. Only scored more than the Force. A minus 279 point differential. Didn't lose a game by less than 7 points. But did get 3 wins and a credible draw in Canberra. They now have to focus on their playoffs versus the Lions, and they've lost a lot of players, key players, to injuries, while the Lions are nice and fresh. And
that Lions team has actually got built up. They got the experience. They got a couple of games behind their back. They know how to play each other, and it's this weekend and next weekend.
Next weekend and the weekend after, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I see Alton Yankees on his way back to Lions, and we'll see if Franco van der Merwe also gets called back to the Lions.
Yeah, I think they all will be, unless they've. The only one I think that won't is Yaku Tautu, who has signed for Province. Well, he's out injured anyway, so he wasn't going to play. On to the Cheetahs. Best season ever. Beat all 4 Aussie sides they played, which bodes well for this playoff game against the Brumbies this weekend.
Yeah.
38 tries for, 32 against, so it doesn't make too magic reading in terms of the people talking about this running rugby that they're playing and blah, blah, blah. They only scored 2 4-try bonus points in the season. But the defence, as we said, has improved, and winning close games that they used to lose has made the difference and resulted in them ending up where they ended up.
That record is... Yeah, that's why Jake White came out and said, it's not running rugby, it's conservative rugby.
No, absolutely. And it's solid defence. And when you look at the stats on that playerstats.com.au,
it's 4 players in the top 10 or top 20
in terms of tackles made, tackles missed, but they also plenty of running meters, and Philip van der Walt, folks, has to be an outside contender for a Bok place in the squad with the Rugby Championship coming up. You look at his stats in terms of what he does around the park, and it's everything from running meters to offloads to tackles to turnovers. As an 8th man, when all the others are out injured.
Philip van der Walt made 784 meters and running meters. Yeah. That's the most for any Cheetah player on the field.
Yeah. And then the offloads, and then the tackles, and the turnovers. Anyway, hopefully Heineken May has been paying attention, because if he's not aware, Pierce Spies, Dwayne Vermeulen, and...
No, I don't see Kanko coming back at all.
Yeah, well, anyway, those guys are all out injured. The Blow Train.
Kies die gemmer of Heineken.
Yeah, the Blue Train is the Bulls heading back to their best after a year off the boil. They topped the SA Conference. They're scoring tries. They're conceding tries. They're scoring points. They're having a laugh. They've got to be a decent shout to win the whole bang shoot. And they may well be odds on for a home final, because it's Chiefs Crusaders. No, it's not. It's not. Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's either the Reds or the Crusaders.
That's right.
And then the Cheetahs or the Brumbies.
No, not the Brumbies. They can't play the Brumbies.
They're the Bulls.
Yes.
It's either the Cheetahs or the Brumbies, and the Chiefs are either the Reds and the Crusaders.
No, the Cheetahs can play the Chiefs if they beat the Brumbies, because they finished lower. Right. So yeah, what we're going to do, let's play some music, and when we come back, we're going to charge through the playoffs this weekend, and then talk about tries of the week and highlights and all of those things. Welcome back to the home stretch of Driving Maul with myself and Hoodbo. We're about to get into this weekend's playoffs, and as we said, there's some interesting asides, because here is what actually could happen. And this isn't as unlikely as people might think it is. If the Brumbies lose to the Cheetahs, so if the Cheetahs beat the Brumbies, the Cheetahs will go to Hamilton to take on the Chiefs.
Okay.
Right? Assuming that the Crusaders get up over the Reds, the Crusaders will have to travel to Loftus. Right? Now, assume that the Crusaders get up over the Bulls and the Cheetahs get up over the Chiefs. The Crusaders will have to travel back to Christchurch to take on the Cheetahs, who will be sitting in New Zealand waiting for them.
Ooh.
Yeah. And the same for the Reds. So if the Cheetahs get through to the final, everybody's travelling unless the Bulls obviously get through to the final. Then the Cheetahs are going back to Loftus.
Kom Vrystaat.
Yeah, no, totally. Come on, boys. Anyway, Saturday morning, 9:35. It is the Crusaders versus the Reds. The Crusaders' big news that's coming out of there, obviously, is after one club game, King Richie is back.
What did fucking do?
He's coming off the bench for them. They're pretty much unchanged in their starting lineup. It's White Crockett, Corey Flynn, Owen Franks. White Crockett, the highest penalty conceder in Super Rugby this season. Most of them probably at scrum time. Luke Romano and Sam Whitelock, George Whitelock, Matt Todd, Kieran Reid, the captain, who's probably the Super Rugby player of the season as far as I'm concerned. But I'm just biased because I'm an eighth man.
Oh.
Andy Ellis, Dan Carter, who seems to be back to some of his best form. Zach Guilford, Tom Taylor, Ryan Crotty, Tom Marshall, and Israel Dagg, who also seems to be hitting his straps at just the right time for the Crusaders.
Yeah. 2-3 weeks ago, he was quite shocking.
No, totally. Then Ben Fennell, Joe Moody, Luke Whitelock, Richie McCaw, Willie Hines, Tyler Blindell, and Adam Whitelock is the bench. So McCaw to come off the bench. The Reds have brought back Liam Gill and Will Genia after resting them for their final game against the Tars.
Orwell as well, or was Orwell out injured again?
No, he's there. So it's Holmes, Sia Fainga, James Slipper, Rob Simmons, James Horwell, Ed Kirk, Liam Gill, Jake Schatz, Genia Cooper, Fial Siltier, Jono Lance, Ben Tapawai, Dom Shipley, and Ben Lucas, with Anai, Jono Owen, Ed O'Donoghue, Radiki Sama, Bo Robinson, Nick Frisbee, and Luke Morahan on the bench.
5-2 split there for the Reds. Interessant.
Yes, indeed. I just wanted to check something. Let's have a look here. 1 All Black, 2 All Blacks, 3 All Blacks, 4 All Blacks, 5 All Blacks, 6 All Blacks, 7 All Blacks, 8 All Blacks, 9, 10, 11 All Blacks in the starting lineup, 12 All Blacks.
I think I count 10 Aussies for the Reds.
So there's 11 All Blacks in the starting lineup. Holmes, Fainga, Slipper, that's 3. Simmons, Hall, that's 5. Gill is 6. Genia 7. Cooper 8. Tapawai 9. Shipley 10.
And Lucas?
No.
Oh.
So there's 10 there and a couple on the bench. So it's pretty much a Bledisloe Super Rugby quarter-final playoff game, whatever the hell you want to call it.
Yeah, but I think the interesting head-to-head there is going to be Dan Carter and Quade Cooper, because Cooper wants to impress Mackenzie because he wants the 10.
Oh, well, Cooper's got to stop throwing blind, no-look, over-the-shoulder passes if he wants
tackle.
to. Yeah, and tackle.
Yeah.
So, quick Super Group predictions.
I'm going to go with Crusaders by 20 at least. I think they're going to trash the Reds.
I'm going to say that it'll be the Crusaders as well by 12.
Because they got Richie McCaw back and Dan Carter's in the team. Kieran Reid, can't go wrong.
On to the Brumbies versus the Cheetahs. And if you missed it, folks, myself and Hurbo will be on air at 7:30 on Sunday morning, bringing you commentary with balls. Judge Rugby is threatening to join us as well, so it sounds like Sharky might actually be here. And we will have your mate from Ermelo, which means we'll have a full house of boys screaming, Vrystaat!
Yeah.
At 8:10 on Sunday morning.
Kom Sharky, kom.
But now, the Brumbies haven't announced their starting lineup. Jake White has said that George Smith will play, but he says he doesn't want to give away his whole team 5 days out from the playoff. So we don't know what Brumbies side is going to be running out. We do know the Cheetahs, though. They are unchanged from 2 weeks ago, because obviously they had a week's break, which effectively is the kind of break that you'd be getting if you had topped the pool and were having a break from the playoffs.
Oh, but Cheetahs weren't that great coming back from the last break, eh?
No one ever is.
So
their side is obviously Henny Delilla, Willie LaRue, Johan Sari, Robert Eberson, Raymond Rule, Rian Smith, Piet van Zyl, Philip van der Walt, Lappies, Heinrich, Lichtoring Landman, who arguably one of the best try celebrations for a no-try in the history of rugby a couple of weeks ago. Ludovic de Jager, he is also going from strength to strength.
Luit de Jager has really impressed me this season. I think him, Pieter Stef de Tooy, and Eben Etzebeth, those are the 3 locks going into the future for the Springboks.
Yeah. And then Lawrence Adrian Strauss, most turnovers in Super Rugby this season.
Yeah, who needs a fetcher when you have a hooker?
Exactly. And then, bang, Connie Oosthuizen. The bench, Reno, Trevor Nukani, Volti Vermeulen, Boom, Prince, Lucaro Pretorius, Olga Watson, Reno Benjamin. I'm going with the Cheetahs upset here.
Yeah, me too.
I'm going to call the Cheetahs to win that one by 2.
Yeah, by 3.
Okay.
No, I just hope or pray that they stop doing this Kuni move over to tight head when a loose head comes on the field, because he doesn't perform at tight head at scrum time.
Yeah, and that Brumbies front row isn't lacking experience or skill.
Yeah, that's the underdone.
But either way, it's going to be exciting, and I'd imagine that Naka is going to have his boys throwing the pill around and trying to play as entertaining a game of rugby as possible. If they try and change their game plan to knock out rugby, and I think they're going to come unstuck, and I just hope that they stick to what they've been doing all season rather than trying to adapt for the knockout phases. It's going to be quite interesting too, because there's obviously there's 4 World Cup winners in the coaches' boxes in that game, because obviously Naka Drotska and Os won it in 95, Os then won it in 07, Jake White won it in 07, and Stephen Larkham won it in 99.
Yeah.
So lots of experience in the coaches' boxes. It's going to be exciting, folks. We will be on air from about 7:45 on Sunday morning. Lord help me, I don't even want to know what state the rest of this mob are going to be in.
Yeah, it's going to be good. Just in for fun.
So let's move on to a quick roundup of Head of the Week. And I can't remember any tackles that stood out aside from Jean de Villiers.
Yeah, Jean de Villiers.
It was magic. Actually, there was one in the game that it resulted in a yellow card for a Blues player, which was also a bullshit decision, because he did try. Was it a Blues player or was it no, it was a Waratahs player. It was a Tars player. He did try and get his arms around the guy, but the guy bounced off him before his arms got around him. He gets pinged for it and yellow carded and binned for what was definitely. But the Jean de Villiers hit, as illegal as it was a thing of beauty to see him take out a youngster like that, saying, "Hello, welcome to Super Rugby, Sunshine."
Yeah, did you see how the guy just like formed the fetal position on the ground with the pink jersey? Oh, just beautiful.
It was rather pleasant and enjoyable. Try of the week. Brian Habana's coup de grace at Newlands is a strong contender. And there were a couple of others floating around in Super Rugby. But for me, Daniel du Plessis, the last try of Craven Week, the angle he ran off a short pop pass from his scrum half, through 2 tacklers, drove the 3rd tackler towards the line, and then reached out through the guy's legs and placed the ball. That was my try of the weekend. And I wish I could encourage the guys that put together the best tries of the weekend on Supersport Blitz to understand the nuances of rugby and not have 3 grubber kicks or 4 grubber kicks in their collection of tries of the weekend, because as fun as they are to watch, they can't
do it.
It's not. I suppose it is a skill, but it's not the kind of, you want to be able. You want to see like the Bryce Hegarty try with the Cooper Voon, a little pop over the top, and then the inside ball from the lock.
Some skills into it, not just a little grubber.
And I admit
50 bound, you catch it.
And I admit Undangani's grubber ahead and running around the defender to score his try.
How good was he at fullback this weekend?
But I'll admit that was an impressive one. But the rest of them were cuck. Pass of the week. It has to be the Cooper Vuna to put Bryce Hegarty in by Hugh Pyle, a little basketball drop over the top. And worth a mention is just about everything that Gary van Asvegen threw on Saturday.
Yeah, yes. Before the game started, I'm like, we're going to lose because of him. And just that I eat my words after the game. He was fantastic.
No, he was brilliant. Game changer of the week for me, Luke Jones came off the bench for the Rebels. Their pack of forward were completely transformed, and they ended up winning the game, in my view, on the back of his performance for 30 odd minutes in the second half of that Rebels Highlanders game. He was superb. Game of the week is a toss-up between the Rebels Highlanders and the Stormers Bulls. For sheer entertainment value, the Rebels game is right up there. But as a Stormers supporter, to pump the Bulls like that at Newlands, that has to be game of the week every time.
Just a stat that I heard over the weekend, the Bulls haven't beaten the Stormers in their pink jerseys ever. So every time they wear their pink shirts,
and Brian Abana loves playing against them in pink. It's like that he scored a superb try. Remember, it was the try that got him back on the road to the kind of form that we're used to last season, where he zigged and zagged his way. It was like he was running against traffic cones in practice. And I mean, you must think about what that does for your peripheral vision in a rugby game. Having bright, you know exactly where the fuckers are. And you just avoid them. And he scored 2 great tries against them in pink jerseys in the last 2 seasons, and hopefully they keep wearing them.
Yeah. I like the pink.
It's not pink, it's fuchsia. Buckies, it's been awesome to have you on Driving Maul, my friend. Thanks so much for joining me. I will see you in the wee hours of Sunday morning for a bit of Come On Cheaters.
Freestart.
Yeah. You've been listening to Driving Maul on Loud Radio. It'll be up on the YouTube channel tomorrow morning sometime. Enjoy the weekend's rugby. Take care of yourselves and everyone else. And the last thing I have to say, Freestart!